But the enemy was waiting. As I prayed in joy, I overheard two people nearby whispering, "Look at her. She's speaking in a devil's tongue." My heart plummeted. I was already extremely tired after 15 days of praying with no water even, slowly despairing of why God was not healing my leg. God, however, once again proved that He loved me by giving me the gift of tongues. At least that's what I thought, and that's why I was so excited the moment I started speaking in tongues. It gave me new confidence and joy. And yet, this tongue of mine was in fact from the evil spirit? The joy was replaced by an icy, familiar despair. The feeling that no one, even God now, didn't love me swallowed me again in the blink of an eye. Contempt and anger for this unfair world filled my heart again. Once again, the desire to end my miserable life here and now raised its head inside of me and whispered into my heart. The whisper was so strong that I actually came out of the prayer house and went to the cliff right next to the house. The prayer house was in the mountain, just like most of the prayer houses in Korea, and therefore it was easy to find a cliff nearby. It may not be a huge one, but it was high enough to guarantee my death if I threw myself from there. I stood at the end of it, looking down. It was night, and only darkness was there beneath my feet. Suddenly, I felt a presence behind me. It wasn't human. It was a figure at least 3 meters tall. It leaned in and whispered in my ear, "Yes, you are right. This world is not worth living in. It doesn't deserve you. You are such a wise and brave person, and only wise and brave people can decide to leave this world by themselves. It just takes one step. Just one step from here and leave this cruel and unfair world once and for all." Oh, how sweet the voice was. I knew it was a spirit, and I knew it was not from God, but from the enemy really. Yet it spoke in such an understanding manner. It was nothing like the voice we would easily imagine when we think of evil spirits. No, it was most understanding and considerate. It almost persuaded me, really. Almost. I was literally a step ahead from throwing myself. Then, suddenly, I remembered a word I heard before I came to this prayer house. It said the minister who was running the prayer house was super powerful spiritually, gifted with so many spiritual gifts. That was in fact why I came to this prayer house. Among those gifts she was given, there was the gift of discerning spirits. I was sure she could tell for sure if these tongues of mine were from God or the devil. I've come this far, I thought. I'll ask her one last time before I go. With everything I had, I held myself and turned around. My feet felt like lead. The being behind me kept following me, still talking to me that there was no need to think again. It felt like every word of it became dead weight on my feet and pulled me back. Trying not to listen to it, I finally reached the room of the minister. I was almost on my fours by the time I knocked on the door. The minister was in her room, thank God. She opened the door, and as soon as I threw myself through her door, the being, the evil spirit in the form of a man behind me, stopped at the threshold. It couldn't follow. What was truly surprising was next. The moment it was gone, my desire to die vanished instantly. The minister listened as I explained through tears what had happened. She asked to hear me pray. Within a minute, she barked angrily. "Who said this was a devil's tongue?" She patted my shoulder and looked me in the eye. "My dear, this is one of the most beautiful tongues I have ever heard. Never worry again. I wept with relief. God had saved me again. The next morning, God gave me 2 clear instructions. First, to drink water. My fast had turned into a suicidal tantrum that had left my spirit as weak as my body. Second, he told me to go to the Osanri Prayer Mountain in Seoul immediately. I didn't know why, but I left that morning. I later found out that my father had arrived at the first prayer house that afternoon to drag me home. He missed me by just a few hours. Without knowing what was happening in my hometown, I arrived at Osanri that afternoon. It was a miracle, in fact, since there was only 1 bus per day that ran from Seoul train station to the prayer mountain at the time, and that bus came to the station within less than 10 minutes after I got off at the station. I, of course, had no idea of any of these. I, in fact, had no idea where Osanri was exactly. I had only heard of it since it was the most famous prayer mountain or prayer house in South Korea. It was established by the first female pastor of South Korea, who was at the same time the mother-in-law of David Yonggi-jo. It was also famous for numerous miracles. There were countless stories of healing that occurred on that mountain. I continued my fasting and prayer in there. Once again, I found myself praying for the construction that was ongoing and for my family instead of my leg. Yet, my leg was still my main reason I was there, no doubt. For me, at least. My fasting lasted for another 15 days. Yet, nothing happened. I was getting tired and anxious, since I knew I could not continue fasting in this rate for more than a month. A month was the time limit that I set to myself and to God. Then, just 3 days before the end of my fasting, 2 women sat next to me, a daughter about my age and her mother. They shared why or how they could come here. It was the daughter who was a sincere believer. The mother hardly had any faith in fact. The daughter had attended the church sincerely since she was young. The problem was that her family was a super conservative family. The elders of the family were furious towards the girl, saying she brought the Western religion into the house and caused division in the family. As a result, she was terribly persecuted by all the members of the family for years. She was beaten, locked in, and threatened in many different ways apparently. Yet she kept her faith. Then one day, they found her mother got cancer. It was the lymphoma, and it was already in its stage 4. The hospital sent her back to home, advising her to prepare herself, since there was nothing they could do at that stage. Even I could see how bad her status was. There were lumps all over her body, including around her neck. It almost looked like she was wearing some kind of a huge necklace beneath her skin. Everyone in her family, including herself, gave up, except her Christian daughter. She was adamant that God could heal her mother if she became a believer, and they prayed together with all their hearts. After a long discussion of the whole family, they allowed the daughter to try. They probably didn't believe when the daughter said that her mother could be healed, but they had no other option left, really. That's why they were there. The daughter said they were given 3 days. For 3 days, they were going to fast and pray and go back home whether God healed her mother or not. 2 days went by with nothing happening. Then, the night before my very last day, and their very last day, I had a dream. In my dream, Jesus himself appeared. Then he told me, "The mother sitting next to you will be healed tomorrow." I was dumbfounded. What does that have to do with me? Why is he telling me that? After a short moment, I asked back, what about me? What about my leg? That was my prayer. That was why I had fasted for the last 29 days. And yet here, in my dream, Jesus was talking about someone else's illness. To my disappointment, however, Jesus did not answer to my selfish question. He instead showed me a picture in which I was wearing a wedding dress. Then he just disappeared without a word. The next day, I watched them closely. I wanted to check if my dream was indeed from God or not. If it wasn't from God, then nothing would happen. If it was from God, and the mother indeed gets healed, well, I would be very upset with God. Nothing happened until the last service of the day. Then, in the middle of the last service, the mother suddenly said she had a stomach ache, needed to go to the toilet. The daughter helped her quickly, and they went to the toilet. They stayed there for quite a long time. They didn't come back until the service was about to end. They returned just before the service finished, and the mother was healed. Her face color was that of a normal, healthy person, and most of all those lumps in her body, including around her neck, were completely gone. The daughter explained that her mother had passed countless blood clots, and as she did, the tumor simply vanished. She wasn't even in pain really, though. It just felt like she was having diarrhea, only it was blood that was pouring out. After 10 or 20 minutes of that, she found all the lumps in her body were gone. They left in joy, but I was left in a rage. Why her? I screamed internally. She wasn't even a believer. Why does God discriminate against me? I was really disappointed in God. More than disappointed, to be exact. I was mad at God and the whole church. Once again, I wanted to kill myself. Not because of despair, but because I was angry. I was so angry, in fact, that I wanted to ruin God's name and the fame of that prayer mountain. Filled with anger, I said out loud, almost declared, saying I was going to kill myself and expose that this place and the whole claiming of miracles were nothing more than a big lie, a fraud. As you can guess, my declaration filled with anger turned the place upside down. The ministers horrified, realizing that I was really going to kill myself. It was a matter of one soul, my soul, at stake, rather than the fame of the mountain. So, every single minister of the prayer mountain was gathered and laid his or her hand on my leg and started praying. Literally every single one of them was there, crying to God for my leg. Yet nothing happened. Instead, one of them told me, "Sister, God is telling you that He is going to heal your leg, but not now. In His time, He says." I snorted, retorting back, "I could say that too. You're just trying to save your reputation." My mind was once again too full of bitterness to listen or understand what God was saying to me at the time. After quite some time of prayers and persuasion, I got tired. I got tired of everything, in fact, of their prayers, of this place, and even of God. I got tired of killing myself even. I wanted nothing but just going back and resting. I was too exhausted both in my body and my mind, so I shook off all the ministers, saying I wouldn't kill myself, since there was no way they would let me go unless I promised that, and returned to home. My family didn't exactly welcome me when I got back. I could feel my family, especially my mother, was in fact expecting I might have died or disappeared forever, but I didn't care. I just went back to my room and slept. My mother hated me for fasting all that time, saying I made my already weak body even weaker, but she took good care of me anyway. It was the same pattern just like always, taking care of my physical needs and torturing my mind. Yet I didn't argue with her. I had no desire to do. I spent the next few months in a state of quiet withdrawal, eating, sleeping, and avoiding church. My boiling anger towards God was gone by this time, but my disappointment towards Him still remained. God, however, did not give up on me. He touched my heart continually, even though I was not aware of it. After a few months, I woke up at the sound of the church bells for early morning prayer meetings, and as if pulled by an invisible hand, I walked back through those doors. Just like that, I went back to God, and once again I became a zealous believer. Until the spring in 1982.